Hello everyone, and welcome back to an informal video once again. And welcome to the Track Lab. In the previous informal video, we discussed my system that I created for solving the annoying disassembly-reassembly issue when it comes to building trains. If you're curious about how that works, you can feel free to watch the previous video. But today we're addressing a different issue, and that is once again to do with disassembly and reassembly, and that is with cargo. So if you're not familiar with the Create 0.5 mod, it is an excellent mod, as I stated in the previous video, but one of the most annoying things with it is that you have to build the entirety of your train, including all of its connected cars, when it's disassembled, and then assemble it as one entity, and then it has to remain that way in perpetuity. And in order to disconnect train cars, remove cargo, etc., you have to disassemble the train, which definitely is annoying, not only because it becomes a source of potential lag and because it's inconvenient, but also because it's not possible currently to be automated, which is very frustrating. But today I have a solution in mind. Now, once again, as with the previous video, this solution does bring with it some compromises, but they are compromises that I think are worth it. So to begin, we have our little test train here. You can see it's just a very simple little vehicle. I got a little conductor up top here, our little horse friend. And then in here we have a very strange looking arrangement. And this is of course what's going to be holding our cargo today. So, as you can see, the train is fully assembled, and what I'm going to do is just grab our wonderful schedule, which is going to simply have him stop and then start at each of these stations, depending on a redstone signal, and work his way through the loop. So we'll just give him the schedule and let him go on his way. So you can see he's going to stop at each station, and then he's going to move on to the next one. So the way that we're going to be adding cargo to this train system is with this little mechanism right here. I've just got it on hand cranks, just for the purposes of illustrating how it works, but of course you can fully automate this in the future. But what we're going to do is we're going to just turn off power to this station, meaning he's going to stop at this station. And so now our lovely little horse friend has stopped at this station. So what do we do now? Well, we need to load the cargo. So we have it right here. You can see it's a minecart contraption currently sitting on a rail. So what we're going to do is we're going to just extend this all the way out until we get here. And you can see that it's going to line up in the center here. And then we're going to just bring it down until you can see that it sits on the exact block right here where this top surface is. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to pull back, and you can see that it actually detaches. And this is through no powering here. There was no activator rail or anything like that to disconnect it. You just pull it back, and because of the way the collisions and hitboxes work, it just disconnects and sits there. So now that we have that in place, we can simply walk over here, click this switch, and off he goes. Now you can see it's a little bit glitchy because of course we're basically containing one entity within another entity, but it does work, as you can see. And I've tested this mechanism for loading and offloading multiple times, and it works quite well. Now of course, this system needs to be a little bit more dynamic than just being able to load and offload cargo. There also needs to be a way of detecting if the train has cargo or not, and so I've also added that functionality here. You can see I just have a redstone lamp, and we have a detector rail. So it needs to stop at the station it's at, or else the detector rail will actually rip the cargo off because it just moves too quickly. The train entity just moves so fast it clips out of the entities. So you need to have it slow down when it passes over this. So I just have a station here that it just stops at briefly in order to check, which is a compromise to be sure, but not a difficult one. And you can see that, it gets to the point where it hooks onto the rail and then it powers this redstone lamp, telling us that there's cargo on the train. And of course now we want to go ahead and grab it, so we'll turn off this redstone lamp and let it make its way around. And then of course we have to load cargo off the train. Now something to keep in mind is that the entities from this, including the blocks, and both these entities here do not appreciate trying to have things move through them. The train entities are actually okay with it, the cart contraptions are not. So you have to design a mechanism in a way where it's able to go through the train entity but not touch this entity, this cart contraption, until it needs to. So if we just had this up, for instance, and we attempted to push this forward, it would just basically hit right into it and cause problems. So what we have to do is obviously we have to make sure this is all the way down, and then we have to extend this. And you can see it hooks in because it pops up a little bit. And you do need these walls here because this does actually break through the hitbox of the deployers, but the walls stop it because it's a secondary hitbox. And that's also why I use the cobblestone walls, or the walls in general, because they have an intermediary hitbox that extends here. So this little ridge right here where the hitbox extends actually counts as another hitbox plane that this hits and gets stopped by. You can see it right here. It just gets stopped by that there. I know it's a little difficult to see that, but it does. And obviously if I try to pull this back now, it'll just let go of the cargo just like it did last time. So what we have to do is you have to lift this up, and you have to make sure you lift it up high enough that the minecart rail does not touch the blocks as it goes through. So if it was one block lower, these walls could potentially lift this off the rails or cause other glitches. If you use solid blocks here, it can work, but can also cause issues just because of the way the hitboxes work. Using something like walls or fences or anything like this that has an intermediary, secondary hitbox pretty close to this hitbox means that it provides just enough wiggle room to keep things contained. Because this will move in and out of these hitboxes over time, but this hitbox stops it. So the combination of these two hitboxes very close to each other is what helps it. The other thing that helps it is these deployers. And I tried this with solid blocks and it just did not work. And the reason is because of the way these deployers work, they get rendered differently than the regular walls do. And I think what I've discovered is that they render similarly to cart contraptions, or at least to some similar degree, which is why I think they tend to play nice or nicer with this than if you use regular blocks. This will just glitch out and flicker and pop out of here and go crazy. But if you put them in these rows of deployers like I have, and yes, you do need a double like this, otherwise this will just jump out. But if you put them in this deployer grid like this, it actually remains fairly neutral and consistent. It doesn't get too stuck up about it. But regardless, we see we've lifted the cargo out, so we'll just bring the cargo back. And now we can let the driver go about his day. And you can just continue about this way. And of course, I'm doing everything manually, but you can automate this, of course, as well. And you need to keep this fully out of the way so the train doesn't touch it, because as we saw, when the hitboxes are fighting, the train's hitboxes will win over the cart contraption's hitboxes. So if the cart contraption is anywhere near this train, then the train's hitbox will push this off the rail. That's part of how this trick works, is it basically just detaches it from the rail, because there's a hitbox collision there, and the hierarchy of collisions for cart contraptions is it would rather get stopped by this than it would stay on the rail, which is useful to us in this scenario. It perfectly stopped where this wall is right here. So you can see this secondary hitbox blocked it from going any farther. If there was a stone block here, it's a potential that it would actually clip through both hitboxes and keep going until it hits the outer hitbox. Sometimes not even that's true, because you can go through them one way. So that's why I use something like walls, because it provides a secondary hitbox that it can't easily bridge through this initial hitbox, which just makes it much less likely that it's going to unstick. And honestly, in all my testing, using this exact setup, it never unsticks. So it's worked pretty reliably. Your mileage may vary in that, but at least in my experience, it has yet to unstick, and I've been trying this for a while to try and see if it's going to cause issues, and it hasn't. And you can do this in other ways, of course, if you so choose, but this way has proven to be the most effective. So hopefully that gives you guys some ideas about how you can utilize these systems that we've been provided and work within the limitations. The Create 0.5 update definitely has some room for improvement. Whether or not they can improvement, who's to say? The limitations of the system that they've coded might prevent them from doing so. But in the meantime, I hope that this has provided a compromised yet viable alternative. The main key that I've been focusing on with this video and the previous one is focusing on reliability. Even if that means more compromises, I wanted the system to be as reliable as possible, because if you want to automate your systems, you do not want them to fail, and you do not want to have to micromanage them, because otherwise why automate them if you're just going to have to be there the whole time? And at least from my testing, it is, because it just has yet to fail on me. It's worked quite well. So with that being said, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching.